I'd like to welcome everybody here today. Call the meeting to order, January 23rd, 2018. And let's all stand and pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So let's look at the agenda and review it. Is there anything we need to add or change?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Move the agenda. Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners' reports. Let's see here. Let's start with Vance. Does that work okay? Or?
That works for me. All right. The day after our last board meeting would be January 3rd. Okay, we had a department head meeting, and after the department head meeting, I had a TDS bylaws committee meeting. On January 4th, I had a Blue Earth County Library Board meeting. On January 5th, I had an All Seasons Arena meeting, and Bob showed up at that one. And January 8th, I had a Children's Museum annual campaign meeting. On January 9th, I had a Highway 14 partnership, which you were at. I had a Children's Museum Board meeting at noon, and then the Greater Mankato Growth Business After Hours at the River Hills Hotel, which is up there by the River Hills Mall. January 10th, I had a Corrections Advisory Board. On January 11th, I had a TDS Personnel and Transportation, and then on January 11th, my TDS Personnel meeting and the Transportation Alliance Ledge Board meeting was postponed because of our storm.
Oh yeah.
Okay, but I did have a Highway 169 corridor meeting in Belle Plaine. And actually, it was kind of fun. We did a tour of that new health facility that's just on the south side of town there. That's where we had our meeting, and pretty nice little facility for Belle Plaine. It's going to help them out a lot. January 12th, I had a NACO transportation call-in. January 13th, I assisted down at Makerspace, which is at 1700 3rd Avenue, with a Build-A-Bed, which we were building beds for the people that the needy, the homeless.
That traveling shelter? What's it for?
No, it was the boutique. What is it? JC Boutique, which is
I think it's J Boutique.
J Boutique, which is in the Sisters of Notre Dame's basement. That's where. But they, the mayor of Eagle Lake, is part of that program, and so I spent probably about 5 hours both building frames of beds and delivering. I had a pickup, so we delivered and delivered them all over the county.
Where is that Makerspace? Where is that?
1700 3rd Avenue. It's with Goodrich. It's right next
Down there in
to
that building.
Goodrich Construction.
Okay,
right.
Sure.
On January 17th, I attended the MICA annual meeting along with almost everybody else here but you, because you were on your conference. On January 18th, I had a TDS Personnel Committee meeting right before our TDS Board meeting, and I was blessed to be elected treasurer, so I'm now on the executive board for TDS. It was a hard campaign, I'll tell you.
I'm sure people were just diving in.
They were. I campaigned hard.
Excuse me.
And then I had a RAC call in after that, and then went to a MnDOT corridor study for Highway 22. January 19th, my wife and I attended a Lifetime Learners tour of the Datsun manufacturing, and that was again very interesting. I've been through there twice before, and every time I go through there, learn a little bit more about that place. 140 years old, and they're doing an amazing job. They had nasty fire last year, which took out, you know, half of them, but they just jumped right in and they're getting back on board. So it's pretty amazing. And then January 22nd, I met with Bob, Josh, and you right here. So that's mine.
Wow. That's kind of a big report, Vance.
All has to do with county stuff.
I know. Oh, well, thanks a lot for that report. Sounds
You
like
bet.
we were very busy in the last, well, I guess it's been about 3
3
weeks too,
weeks,
hasn't it?
3 weeks.
So, Commissioner Brunder, would you like to be next?
I certainly can, and yeah, there was a 3-week span in there, and due to a couple days of some illness and then the weather, several of my meetings were canceled. So
Yeah.
I do have a relatively short report for it being such a long period, but as mentioned already, I was at the department head meeting. In Bob's absence, Josh ran the meeting and did a fine job. We had a good meeting. And then we had planning and zoning that night. We had 2 items. We'll see them in a few minutes here. Pretty straightforward items. Then we had the East visits, where Mike Lavin and myself go and visit with the senior class of Miss Robinson's. And we had 3 classes that we did. And Mike comes in and he kind of gives his perspective of how he got elected and then what he does as a council member. And then I also give my story, how I got elected and got into politics, and then talked a little bit about county. And Jessie Anderson used to come help me do that, and she kind of talked about it on a perspective from an employee side, but we've kind of changed the format just a little bit. So I do a little bit of what Jessie does, and I kind of explain our sheet that we have with all the different buildings and the departments, and kind of tell the students about what we have in Blue Earth County to offer and different things going on in the county. And then we had the MICA meeting that was mentioned already also, and it was nice to see that group come down here from the north and, well, all over the place actually, but the venue was wonderful. I thought they did a great job with the food, and our vice chair did a great job delivering our welcome and got them all fired up about the bike trails and paths and rivers. I think if it would have been nicer, we could all go on biking that day.
Yeah.
And he did convince them not to buy a dam if it was offered to you, even for $1. So. But apparently Dakota County didn't get the information soon enough because I apparently bought one. So, but Will did a great job with that, and the meeting was very interesting to hear the perspective of the representatives that spoke. Clark Johnson spoke and announced his retirement at that meeting, and had some good discussion. And then a few meetings were canceled the last couple of days due to weather. Brings me to today, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner. How about Mark over there?
Okay. Mine started, I did miss the department heads, but mine started on January 11th with the mayors and clerks at the Lake Crystal City Hall. And that was a good meeting. We got a little tour of the facility after the meeting, and that was probably an even bigger deal. And of course, Brad, as always, does a good job and is a good mayor. Then he had, and the program was on MSRS, your pensions and retirement with Minnesota State employees, and different options there for people in the public sector, what they can do, not just state employees. January 12th, did have our Kaburba, our Blue Earth River meeting, and that was in Mankato here, and that was good. And then, of course, January 17th did have the MICA, the annual meeting, and yes, Will did a good job. He should really work for our local promotion with Anna Till, with the Visitors Bureau, and promoting our area.
Does a really good job, I'll tell you.
Then we had the, I caught Vance at the January 18th, with the 22 corridor study. He was leaving, he had primed them all for when I came. And then, and that was well attended. I was amazed at how many people were there, and who was there.
I think that was the second night too. I think they had one the night before.
That's right. And then on the 18th, they had we had our MAPO at the Intergovernmental Center, and the Stolzman Road, that project is in the plan.
For the trail?
Yep, for the trail.
Nice.
Asking for the money, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. And that was a good meeting. And that actually, between the Vikings and all the snow, I guess that was it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Purvis.
Yeah, okay, on the 3rd, we had the department heads, that's already been talked about. On the 4th, I met with 2 people from Lake Crystal regarding the Safe Routes to the School program, and they talked about some of their concerns and ideas that they had. On the 11th, I had JD 14 landowners meeting here at the courthouse, talk about possible improvement or repair on that project. And later on that evening, we had the mayors and clerks in Lake Crystal, which has pretty much been covered already. A nice, great new building they had there, and we looked through the new library space they had there. It's beautiful, beautiful library space. I think it's twice the space they had before. So that was a nice addition. Then we had the MICA meeting, and that was great to see that group of folks. And then on the 19th, I spoke to 2 9th grade civics classes regarding county government, and they were quite engaged, and we had some good conversation about county government, and I was fortunate enough to have my 15-year-old grandsons in each class, so that was fun, and that's my report.
Well, very good. Well, thank you. I've got a report here. I can try to keep it short myself. Our last board meeting, January 2nd, which we called our organizing meeting, and where we get all of our committee assignments, our loan interest rates, all those kinds of things. The wonderful publication rates that Vance educates us about. Sorry about my voice. I'm still into my 3rd or 4th week with this cold. It just hangs on. I don't know, I've had it since just after Christmas. Of course, department head meeting on January 3rd. January 4th, the NACO Health and Justice Forum call-in. We were planning for that. That's coming up then. Friday the 5th, Strengthening Public Health in Minnesota work group. And that was to be our final meeting. We had 3 large meetings. They go for about 4.5 hours. Up near St. Paul. This last one was in Dakota County at their Northern Service Center, which is a nice, big, beautiful building. And you know, we at the end of that meeting, we felt we really needed at least a group of people or some kind of a finality, because we had put a lot of work into that, trying to identify needs around the state, trying to look at what all of the community health boards are doing in each county, and seeing what's required of each board statutorily, and also how we can improve our system here in Minnesota. Of course, we knew we needed more dollars, but actually we really also talked a lot about identifying issues of priority, trying to prioritize things, and to look at the function and roles of each board. And then to also acknowledge that we lack capacity in many areas of the state if we had some kind of a health emergency, or if we had some kind of a outbreak. So those are some things of concern when we think about counties and what our responsibilities are to respond to outbreaks. And we looked at how important competency and education is for our public health staff too. That really makes a difference in how each community health board functions within their given region. So that was an all-day meeting. It's the 3rd one we've had since November, and quite a few people attend those and work hard on them. The January 8th, I attended the school board meeting where we swore in a new board member, Darren. Oh boy, do you know his last name? Wecker. Okay, yeah, Darren, and he sits on our Health
Human Services.
Yeah, Human Services Board. So he was sworn in. He's our second male, I should say, on the school board.
Yeah.
So I was there. Abdi was the other one that was the sole man on the board, and so now Darren is the second one. And then that was their organizing meeting also. Tuesday, January 9th, Highway 14 Partnership, and of course Commissioner Stuerberg was there over in Owatonna. And Karen Foreman, who is our city council person here in Mankato, she's our president, did a very good job of running the meeting. MnDOT gave a report on the Corridors of Commerce scoring system. And there were some deep concerns around the state because they thought maybe this was going to be offset and the metro area was going to be able to weigh in more heavily due to the fact that they have corridors that have these, a lot of, well, let's just say a lot of economy on them that connect to the cities. But the plan is to try to keep it pretty balanced. So we're happy to hear that news, right, Vance?
Yep.
And all of us here concerned. And then we had a question and answer time with Paul Torkelson, our representative from over there in Brown County area, and Representative John Petersburg. Torkelson is the chair of the Transportation Finance, and Petersburg is the vice chair of the Transportation Finance. And so people had a chance to kind of weigh in and give them a chance to weigh in. And then, of course, on January 10th, we had the True Transit Advisory Committee. That's our TAC. Right over here, we meet at the Vine Building. They operate what I would call the beginning stages of our multi-county transit system. And Carol Clark did a good job, and Paige Schutte, she did a good job of giving a report. Represents LeSueur County, Nicollet County, and Blue Earth County. And they did some really nice ads. Have anybody seen any of those on TV or heard them on the radio?
Good. They are very.
Yeah, they're
very
good.
Yeah.
So I was happy to see those. And then also on the 10th, that evening, I attended the Region 9 Full Commission, and that usually takes several hours. We had a team there from Representative Wall's team. I think it was his gubernatorial team, though. I'm not sure, but anyway, they did like a survey of everybody there, electronic little clickers and things, to see what needs could be addressed this year in Minnesota. And so it was interesting to hear the feedback from everybody. On the 17th, flew out to, well, see, what day was the Mayors and Clerks? I missed that one, didn't I?
That was the Thursday.
Thursday.
You probably left
I
on
was-
Wednesday to get to the.
All right, but I attended a meeting of mayors and clerks in Lake Crystal.
You were
And saw their library and everything. What day was that on?
I believe that was on the 11th.
The 11th.
11th, you did go, yeah.
I was there.
Yeah,
When you
that's
mentioned the
right.
library, I said, I was
Yeah,
going to
Yeah,
say the
that's,
same thing.
that's right. It was the week before
Yeah,
you.
week before.
you left, yeah.
But it was a
You were with
wonderful,
us.
wonderful new building
Yeah,
that they had there. I was really impressed with that, and their library.
yeah.
Yeah, it was very nice. So on the 17th, Dawn and I flew out to Shelby County early in the morning. Shelby County is where Memphis, Tennessee is. And this was for the Health and Justice National Forum that NACO was a part of helping put together. And the actual conference wasn't to start until Thursday and Friday. So that was the 18th and 19th. So that evening they had a reception at the National Civil Rights Museum, Dr. Martin Luther King, and it was part of it's built inside of the little motel from where he was when he was shot.
Oh, wow.
And they have the bedroom preserved that he was in and rested in probably just moments before he died. And it was kind of touching to be there and to realize the reality of it. And that was in 1968 that occurred and changed a lot of things in this country. So that was very, very kind of a touching experience to see that museum. If you ever get near that area, I'd recommend anybody go through that Civil Rights Museum. This conference, I just want to make a few comments. I won't talk too long about it. But it was also a time for our county to highlight the Yellow Line project, which we've been working on. And so it took me a little while to even educate myself about some of the details of the Yellow Line project. And they had some good materials. You know, if you go to yellowline.com or yellowlineproject.com, you pretty much can find everything you need to know. There might be some other things. I spoke to one of the staff that also has been involved since the beginning, just to kind of get some feedback. But also, we listened to many people talk about jail diversion issues, the racial disparities of how many people of color are locked up in our jails across the country compared to the people who live in those regions. And so there's definitely some racial issues that need to be addressed still. Looking at issues of equity Also, there was a presentation again on the opioid crisis because that's affecting a lot of our jails. And when Charles, our NACO president, Charles Brooks, was there to help kind of kick things off also and to share issues. He's very concerned about people, families throughout our country, and children who live in poverty. And so that's his mission for this year, 2018. Our Honorable Tony Carter, she's been a long-time commissioner of Ramsey County. She was a big part of this conference. She's the chair for NACO on their health emphasis that their outreach for their committee there. And she also spoke. Also, we know that her son was just elected, Melvin Carter Jr. He is the new mayor of St. Paul, so it's really interesting.
Oh, that's her. Okay.
Yeah, that's her son. So, and he's a black mayor for St. Paul. That's a very good thing. And I've met him several times and talked to him. He's a very nice man, young man. There's a Honorable Mark Luttrell. He's was actually in corrections. I can't remember. I think it was county police. For 22 years. They call them mayors down there in Tennessee. So if you and I right now are this board, I'd be a board of mayors.
Huh.
Yeah. So he's a mayor, but a commissioner. And
Really?
yeah, so he was a leading force throughout this whole conference. He introduced a lot of people.
Excuse me, how do they do that? They call them all mayors, but then
Yeah.
you still have a mayor of the town?
They still have a mayor of the city, and the mayor of the city was at this conference also. And I tell you, down there, they've been headlong, way ahead of a lot of people, working on disparities and working on dispersion projects for jail, and getting health into the jail, getting health programs into the jail to help folks and follow up. So yeah, it's kind of a little confusing. It really is. I mean, when I was there, they kept introducing him as mayor, but they're used to it down there, so they know who's the commissioner, basically the county mayor. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's something else of concern from that, or of issue that was good. I guess the Yellow Line project, I can say that, I used a couple of clips, like 3 minutes of that main video, and then there's a 5-minute video that was put together from the award that we got from local government, and I used those along with some notes that I had with me. And immediately afterwards, there was people all around asking me questions, making sure they had the right link. Many of them had already forwarded that link to people, because what's interesting about this program is that it's a model, and it's online, and it has full access to anybody. So if people go to that yellowlineproject.com, they can find training videos for law enforcement. They can find all the forms that's needed. If they want to tweak them or change them to meet their needs, they can do that. So I'll try to shut up about that stuff now, but it took a lot of effort to get out there, and
Oh, yeah.
my voice was completely gone about a day before I got there, so I was a little concerned. It came back just in time enough so I could present on Friday morning.
Well, thanks for representing us at that.
Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah, people asked about you, Will.
Yeah.
Because they were wondering, what happened. They thought that they were
Yeah.
expected to see you and
Oh,
talk
yeah.
to you.
Yeah, I planned
But I
on-
said, if something came up, I said, I didn't know what it was, but you were
Yeah.
planning on coming.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, maybe it was related to the weather because you were going to drive.
Yep.
But, so anyway. And then, of course, had a meeting yesterday on the 22nd with Bob and Josh and Vance, just to talk about some personnel policies and looking into the future. So, thank you. That's my report. And we've got about 25 after. Is that what we have here? Let's
Yep.
see. I'm really having little issues. See, my my iPad, they asked me to update it, and it's changed a lot of things on here. And I'm not used to it. And I can't even get Adobe to load
No, dear.
to put my work packet on Adobe. So if it takes me a while,
Use your sheet.
I'm using that too. Yeah.
Or you should
So-
use mine.
No, we'll get by. We don't have as much on the agenda today. So that's it for our commissioners' reports. We've got time for some administrative services before we do planning and zoning. So Bob, what would you like to do? Start with,
Mr. Chair, first item is the county board minutes for January 2nd.
Move the minutes.
Second.
okay, we've got a motion to approve and seconded for our county board minutes from January 2nd. All those in favor, or is there any discussion or additions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And we've got the bills. Should we go ahead and start those? Or you want to move on to something
Sure,
else?
yeah,
Move
we
the
can do
bills.
those bills.
Second.
We've got a motion to approve the bills. Second. And is there any questions or additions or question about the 3 weeks of bills?
I had a couple, oh, here we go.
I've got a couple. Should
Yeah, I
ask
have
you
a
quick?
couple, I have a
You
couple
got some?
too, if you want to. Actually, it's Pro Shine, it's in the, make sure it's the 2nd. Yeah, it's January 4th through the 10th. And only just wondering, is that, how many buildings does that cover? I know it's cleaning.
Oh, it's cleaning, yeah.
It is cleaning, I believe that's for the Justice Center.
Oh, is it just for one building then?
You know, it might be for more, but,
And then
I
is
they
it, I
do
didn't know how
Justice
long
Center.
it was, period-wise.
How much is it for, Mark?
It was like 13,108, so I didn't know if that was for, well, I don't know, a long time.
I bet it's more
Whatever. Months or something, I have no
One
idea.
month for the Justice Center.
I bet.
Is that 1 month in the Justice Center? I don't-
I'm assuming. I think the contract was 80 or 90,000 several years ago. when we
Yeah,
did it.
okay, well then it probably, yeah.
It actually is both the Justice Center and the Government Center.
Okay, okay, that's not so bad then, okay. Then, what else I had?
Excuse me.
Oh, well, that was more of a personal. Paul Horsberger still doing stuff for the county? Is he doing some, he's doing contracted services and I don't know, it wasn't, I just didn't know that. That's cool. That's all I had.
I'm actually not aware, so.
Yeah, I mean, he's been around, years before for a long time.
I
didn't
could
know
look
he
it
was-
up if you want to tell
Yeah.
me which week you see
Yeah.
him in.
Okay. All right.
Anything else? Anybody else
That pretty well does it, yeah. there's-
Last week, Raw Construction, about 215,000.
That is JD 34, a ditch system.
Thank you.
And then I just got a couple questions, if that's all right. B&H Petroleum Equipment purchase for $5,224 in the first week. Just wondering what we're getting from.
That's for the county shop.
Is it?
Just as
For
guess.
equipment?
Right,
Yeah.
the description here is Lake Crystal fuel tank upgrades.
Oh, the tank itself?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Brock White Company LLC equipment purchase for $30,900 even.
That is a public works purchase as well. The description was dust control routers.
Whatever that is?
Dust control
I could talk to Ryan if you'd like me to, but I
Probably
don't
spray
know.
nozzles or something, or,
I would guess so,
Maybe like on township roads and stuff, on
but I would
gravel?
assume.
I would imagine.
Or if they're doing
County
construction.
gravel roads, yeah, or something.
And when they do construction, they use dust control too, I know.
Yeah.
Hanson, Vernon and Marcia, right of way, 22,000 even. Just curious what project that was from.
That is CASA 1.
Number one, okay. And then Onsolve LLC, other capital expenditures for 25,500 and something.
That one looked new.
Huh?
That wasn't, I haven't seen that one.
I've never seen Onsolve, yeah.
That's a purchase in our sheriff's department for the Code Red and iPause systems.
Okay. So that's why it's kind of new. So week two, I just had one here, it's interesting, I looked at AMC, membership dues, it says $21,539, that's our Association of Minnesota Counties. But I did notice in week one, they had one also, membership dues of $6,000. So was there like, broke it down into a couple of payments, or we were behind one maybe? Or that was the end of the year payment?
I would guess, well, the 21,000 is the county overall fee,
It
but I
is.
would assume the other one is LPHA and MAXA. So AMC
Oh.
oversees those associations that support public health and human services.
Okay, so separate.
separate
separate associations. I know they have quite a few under their umbrella, so. And then HHW disposal for $9,548. And I should give this up here.
Household hazardous waste,
That's what I figured, yeah, it's gotta be.
paints,
Oh,
Which,
is it?
materials.
was that in week 3?
Yeah. It's,
Disposing of all the stuff they collected.
okay, yeah. Well, nobody has stumped the administrator
No.
this morning. It's probably the paint, don't you think, Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
What was the name of the vendor?
Household hazardous waste.
Viola. Veolia.
That's why I'm.
V-E-O-L-I-A.
That is the vendor that we use to dispose of the paint
It is, okay.
under the paint care program.
And then this one you have to look up. There's 3 different types of clubhouses on here. 20 grand, 20 grand, 20 grand. That must be some funding that comes in and then it's sent out, or?
Right, it's part of the South Central Community-Based Initiative, that adult initiative grant funding that the county receives then is parsed out into the
Okay.
funds of the various clubhouses around the
what I figured.
region.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Nope. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries on the bills. And now it's 9:30, we've got planning and zoning. And who do we have here today?
Morning, gentlemen.
Please come
Morning,
forward.
gentlemen.
It says here George Leary. You guys don't look like George Leary at all.
We're upgraded versions.
Please introduce, please introduce yourself too.
Morning, Mr. Commissioners. I'm Aaron Stubbs.
I'm Garrett Rolfing.
George is a little under the weather today, so
Okay.
get us.
You'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Upgraded, so.
Upgraded. PC 01-18 is a request from Ted and Jody Marty for review and approval of a conditional use permit to stabilize and armor a failing section of Morgan Creek Stream Bank. The project is in the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter of Section 21, Cambria Township. The property is zoned agricultural and is within the Shoreland Overlay District of Morgan Creek. Ms. Ascendo presented the staff report. The applicant was present and made no further comment. The township representative who was present mentioned that they reviewed this project at their December meeting and are supportive of the project. There was no other public comment and little discussion by the Planning Commission. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
So we open this up for public comment? So this is a public comment period here, a public hearing. If there's anybody here that would like to come forward and makes a statement or a comment about this project, this is your time to come forward. And if you do, come up here to the microphone, state your name and where you live. So is there anybody here that would like to say something about this project? And I'll ask again, is there anybody here that would like to come up and make a public statement? For the 3rd time, anybody here that would like to come forward? Okay, I'll close the public portion of the meeting and bring this then before the board.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Well, we've got about 3 seconds. So we've got a motion for sure here. We've got Commissioner Brunder moved. Who do you have, Jesse?
Commissioner Purvis.
Purvis, okay, second. And any questions or comments then from the board?
I just have a quick comment to make. This is actually a relatively large undertaking that these people are taking on.
I see that.
I appreciate
Amazed.
them taking the time and energy to put this together and move forward with a project like this, because it is for the benefit of the whole entire county, but they're taking it on their own.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. A hard project.
And I noticed too, I always look for what the hydrologist has to say about it. And they had some good comments, it seemed to me. It was more positive than anything.
Yeah, the entire plan was actually designed by the DNR. So
Amazing.
hope their hydrologist supports
Know
their
what they're doing?
engineer's
No,
work.
I know.
Yeah.
It says it will not impact upstream or downstream, so I
Right.
mean, it's,
Yeah.
what else can you ask for?
Mhm.
Excuse me, boy. So anyway, anything else?
I don't know anything.
Okay, all those in favor of this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Let's go on to PC 03-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 03-18 is a request from Daryl Anderegg and Mitchell Anderegg. Request for review and approval of a conditional use permit to transfer the residential development right from the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter to the northwest quarter of the northwest quarter, all located in Section 21, Luray Township. The property is zoned agricultural and is in the shoreline overlay district of an unnamed creek. Mr. Rolfing presented the staff report. The applicant was present and made no further comment. There was no public comment and little discussion by the Planning Commission. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is the resolution.
So we've got PC 03-18 before us. Is there any public comment? I'd like to open it up for a public hearing to hear public comment. Is there anybody here that would like to come forward and say something about this project? Again, is there anybody here in our audience that would like to come forward and make any statements or any questions about this transfer? And a third time, is there anybody here? Please come forward and use the microphone at the podium. I don't see anybody, so I'll close the public hearing portion, public comment portion, and bring it back to the board. What is the wishes of the board?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got Commissioner Brunder motion for approval. Second is
Commissioner Stuenberg.
Commissioner Stuenberg. And any comments or any questions from the board on this?
Nope, pretty straightforward at the planning and zoning. Nobody testified. I see Mitch is in the audience, so hopefully you can get moving with this project if you'd like to, so.
Okay. The only comment I would have is, it seems unusual, and I don't know, I was gonna ask our staff if it happens very often, that there's no comment from the hydrologist, from the DNR, because you send them a letter, notify them about this transfer, and it's in a shoreland area, and I was just wondering, you know, does that happen very often, where if they're asked for comment, they give no comment?
So, Mr. Commissioners, members of the board, the DNR will only comment if the proposed development is actually inside the shoreline
I
overlay
see.
district. There are portions of this property,
Yep.
but where the actual house is going to be developed falls outside of that shoreline. And so because it won't have any impact on
I
the
see.
shoreline, they provide no comment.
Okay, that might make sense. Okay. Usually DNR likes to make comments, so I just was wondering. All right, well, thank you. Well, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And that's
Thank you,
about it
gentlemen.
then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
Good
coming
day.
up here. And I think we've got somebody scheduled next here of great importance. Phil Clausen with Human Services, please come forward.
Morning, Phil.
Good morning, Phil.
Good morning. I just gotta find it here. I can't use my bookmarks. There we go. Got it. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, I have several action items for your review that I'll ask for your approval on. The first one being under public health regarding our immunization registry. This is a contract through the Department of Health to engage our immunization efforts. It is a renewal. The amount is $42,825, represents a 2% decrease from 17. The term of this agreement would be January 1st of 18 through December 31st of 18. Financial assistance, we have an interpreting contract with Lingo One. For Human Services, it's a 4% increase, brings it to $50 per hour for the first hour, and then there's a graduated scale beyond that. For 2018, the rates are closer to the industry standards, but our rates do tend to be still low. Some of these costs are reimbursed through the Department of Human Services. The term January 1st of 18 through December 31st of 18. Behavioral health, we have a contract addiction recovery technology for the provision of our Rule 25 chemical health assessments. And this is for individuals who are our financial responsibility and are of qualifying income, $150 per assessment, and the term is January 1st of 18 through December 31st of 18. Disability services, also one item for Vine Transportation for medical assistance. We had a companion contract last month. This one is for seniors and social service clients. It fulfills our statutory responsibility for those two populations. Rates have remained the same. The term is from January 1st of 18 through December 31st of 19. And finally, administrative action, appointments to the Mental Health Task Force. Sesame, I'm going to try, Sesame Glacker Rilquimi from District 4, and she is a youth member, junior at West High School, and Mohammed Ibrahim from District 2. He is employed with Minnesota Council of Churches. So those are my action items.
Yeah.
I think you should have the commissioner from District 4 pronounce that name.
Absolutely. I'm sure we could do better than I did, maybe. So no offense to the individual.
You were very close, that's all I know. You were very close.
Very close.
You've probably heard about her too, haven't you, before?
I have,
Yeah,
yes.
She was on the cover of, what is it, Something Woman magazine just
Yeah.
recently. And then, of course, years ago, when she was only about 11, I think, she started, with the help of her parents, a program for Santa's helpers here in town for parents
Wow.
that can't
Not neat.
really afford to get gifts for their kids. Isn't that what the
Oh,
program?
yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So now somebody else has recently taken that over to help with
So
that. But
cool.
it's taken off. It's been
Wow.
going for, I'm going to say it's been on they've been doing it for 3 to 4 years maybe.
Great.
Yeah, 4 years I'd say at least. Could be into their 5th now. And there's usually two youth positions on most of our county
Right, there are
committees.
openings there, Commissioner, you bet.
Yep.
Mhm.
And Mohammed Ibrahim, I also know him. He is really a very interesting man if you've never met him. He was in a warlike atmosphere as a young man and was being trained by, I think, Doctors Without Borders.
Mhm.
He's done everything a doctor and a surgeon almost has done.
Wow.
But over here, it's not recognized
Right.
very much. And he really does have a great understanding of the medical field. He's delivered babies, he's done cesareans. You wouldn't believe all the stuff he's done and what he's seen. And had friends blown up and lost friends over there. I believe it was in Somalia. And we're happy to have him in our community.
Absolutely.
So these are two good folks in our
Yeah,
community.
definitely exciting.
The only other comment that I might have about it, if it's okay, Phil, and to the board, would be that something I'm learning as I go along, you know, that we are really acting as the community health board right now. This is when Phil
Right.
is before us. We're statutorily, we're different than a lot of other counties in the state because they would handle it separately, a lot of these things, and it wouldn't come before the board necessarily here. They would be given the authority as the community health board. And so we are, I believe, are the community health board right now. We operate as a community health board. All 5 of us are in a separate capacity right now when we pass this.
Right.
So it's a different statute that we kind of fall under. I don't really understand all of it. Maybe it's something we could talk about at a work session, but it would be helpful maybe to go over it sometime.
Sure, absolutely.
How we handle things. So do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Mark?
Second.
Second. And any more discussion or any questions about some of these programs? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Commissioners, I have a number of informational discussion items that do involve public health. Obviously, this is an overview. I think myself, staff would be glad to come to any work session on any of these programs if we want to dive into more of the operations. Obviously, we have a lot of capable staff that make sure our programming happens every single day. I do have 4 areas that I'm going to go over, the first of those being the WIC clinic. I think we all are aware that our WIC clinic provides both education and direct supports to pregnant women, the new moms, babies, and children up to age 5. The first slide actually is an ancillary piece that staff does, is paternity testing to support our child support actions, just to establish the parental biological track of who is the biological parent of children. So WIC staff are willing to do the swabs for us in order to get that work done, and we very much appreciate it. It's kind of a gap filler service that is important to a lot of families in our community. The next one does get into the WIC annual participation rates, and this is really the overall contacts that are made. We're projecting a 5% decrease, which I don't believe to be very significant. There is some volatility, but overall the numbers are quite high, being over 15,000 contacts per year. The unduplicated households, most of the families we serve have maybe 1 to 4 people that are involved in that family unit, and so if you break it down to how many families are being served, it's that 1,130 number for this past year in 17. The next section is child and teen checkup, and this is one we really work in partnership with our clinics and primary health providers. There is a kind of battery of detection and treatment related issues that come through this project, and addresses barriers in accessing health and dental care, transportation, language barriers, or finding a provider. So that's when our staff would get involved, is if we start to see that people just aren't accessing the services, and that docs do a battery of exams, and then if there's anything that's flagged, there is this one-to-one outreach that we offer as well. So you'll see the graph with the reminder letters. We are able to customize the letters some in this area. A lot of times you hear us talk about how things are templated by the state. In this case, we are able to do some customization of concerns per child or per family. And then you see the direct contacts. Year over year, some slow and steady growth. It is based on our MA eligibles, and I would just let the board know that year over year for the past 5 years we've seen an increase in that population in our community. So steady growth. Yeah. Oh, did you have a question?
No. Wow. Sorry.
It's fine. First Steps, another partnership we have really with Mankato Clinic Foundation, United Way primarily, and then ourselves. The core mission on the first slide is wellness of the community. So this is a kind of core tenet of public health, is look at a population-based perspective. And in this case, we're looking at social determinants of health, and I will give you a slide on that shows what what that means. Our goal is to improve overall health, healthy pregnancies, healthy babies, and the focus on early intervention, trying to get in there sooner rather than later if there are any concerns, or if people are just in a position where they have a lot of life stress or barriers. Again, we want to try to help manage those.
So how does that look per year? I mean, is it looking like in 2017 we're doing better, or I'm having trouble reading the scale.
So am I.
don't know.
Sure.
So am I.
What does the scale mean to us when you're showing us, second trimester looks like in 2017 we had many more.
Sure.
Tell me what the scale.
So this scale, based on the mission that we're stating there, is what we want to do is see it front loaded. So it is showing us what we want, which is,
Okay.
do you see in the first trimester the huge numbers?
Yep.
And what we're trying to do is get in early. And so that is exactly our goal. So this slide would answer that question of saying, what are we looking for? We're looking for early identification and participation engagement in that first first trimester. And then that it scales down is also fine, because what we're doing then is hopefully supporting and launching families to get what their needs are. The fact that there's still remaining some families after 12 weeks after the baby's born, that's fine with us too, because those families might have more complex needs or a lot more needs, and we want to continue to work with them as well. You'll see later when we talk about maternal child health, it's the opposite, is that we don't, with MCH nurses, we go out and try to support kids as they get older, meaning under age 5 still, but it goes the other way. So it's a great question, and I appreciate that, because sometimes when you look at these over and over for myself, I don't think of what are we saying here. What we're saying is we want to get in early, and we want to see this scale just as it is.
So it's good to grab on early, get as many people that you can, and then since there's fewer people that have need out there, then it normally would just drop down, is what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Because you're already seeing these other ones.
Right, you'd want it to stair step down. What really happens in practical sense too is that docs flag on families or births that they think could have complexity to it, and that's this next slide, which maybe could have come earlier, because then it would make more sense. What are we looking for? This next slide that says social determinants of health, this is our core foundational piece. This is what we're screening for. And docs are actually the one, docs and nurses, looking at these things and saying, this family probably has a lot of concerns or a lot of barriers or a lot of pieces of vulnerability that we want to try to help, and that's what our staff does. Teresa Freitag is the name of our staff doing this work. She's co-located at the Mankato Clinic, so it's really one of those partnership relationships that we've had for a number of years now. And so we're very proud of the bridge itself, as well as trying to get in early, as we just discussed. You'll see across the bottom of the scale the different areas that are kind of screened for. These are the indicators and the measurements that we kind of look at. Most of the folks we are involved with have at least 4 of these. You don't need 4, you could have 1, but most of our families have multiple needs, and that's just the fact of when you get into a hard situation, a lot of times that can snowball, and I think we're all aware of that. The first 5 items you can see are kind of more overrepresented. Those are very stable, meaning every year those are the 5. And so that it's not surprising, again, to all of us in our community and really throughout the nation, that these factors can create a lot of disparity and need. And so those are the 5. But then, again, we would flag on any of the ones across the bottom and then deal with the families directly, and like we said earlier, try to get in early.
Okay.
The last slide related to first steps, you look at just the overall caseload. There was a ramp up in those first years, 2013, that's a typo, 2013-14, and then a fairly stable caseload or churning of individuals and families that we deal with over the past 3 years. You'll see that because we're co-located in the Mankato Clinic, we're overrepresented with their population, but we do get some referrals from Mayo and self-referrals, and then just other combinations of people. Again, our primary partners, Mankato Clinic Foundation, United Way, and then ourselves, we put in both a little over $5,000 a year, plus a lot of in-kind staff time into this project. The last category is maternal child health, and we talked about this. You'll see a couple of the unique programs that we do here. Early hearing detection, birth defects, and on the next slide you'll see elevated lead levels. The older homes, I think that we're probably aware of, have lead paint, and because of that they screen children to see if there's been exposure. If you look at the numbers, like with early hearing detection, birth defects, they're low, but as we all know, and I'm sure no families, or might be our own family, that have special needs, when it's your family, those specialized programs are very helpful, and the fact that we have experts that can come alongside families and they're really saying, what is this thing I'm up against with my child, it's a very helpful thing, even though the numbers aren't real high in all of those levels, in all those areas. I'm sorry.
Phil, do they still do that? I mean, do they partner with the schools when they do this too? I mean, because I remember when my kids were in school, parents used to come in and we used to do the hearing. We'd have them look at their spine and their back to see if there's any curvatures.
That's right.
We would
do a preliminary site. I mean, we did all that kind of stuff right at the school with all
Right.
these, with the grade school kids.
Yes,
You know.
and so I think there's still some screening that happens in the schools. We're trying to work with those primary health providers, and sometimes, it's difficult when a doc has so much time that they like to do certain things. But part of this protocol is, when we did the child and teen checkup, is that there's certain things that you're supposed to kind of check off the list and look for.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure, just like the immunizations, that those things are getting done on a regular basis. I think there are checks and balances, though, between us, the school district, the providers, and then a lot of different social service staff that might come in contact with the family and say, hey, you'd really benefit from getting to some of these
Yeah.
experts with regard to the hearing issue or the birth defects or whatever it might be.
Hearing is so important too. I mean,
Really
there's a
is.
lot of little kids that, let's just say they're 2,
Yep.
and their hearing might not be as good as you think, and then you're wondering, why are they delayed?
Right.
Why aren't they developing the way
Right.
my nephew is or niece? And you'll find out, well, they need to have tubes put in their ears or something, because they're all
Absolutely.
clogged up all the time.
Right.
Or it really does affect things deeply.
And the hearing loss, a lot of times if people can hear, but they have hearing loss, people treat you as if there's no, barrier at all. And so there's an assumption that because you can hear some, you can hear well. And that disconnect is really, as far as where kids sit in the classroom and how that, now selective hearing, that's a different issue. That I do have.
Oh, is that
helps.
true?
Yes, exactly. That's a different issue altogether. All right. And then finally, we have a couple more slides here just about
Yeah.
MCH, and you'll see this is the opposite scale, Commissioner, that we were talking about. Is here you see prenatal, which is not the primary focus of MCH, but if we know we have a family that has a lot of barriers or a lot of risk indicators, we want to work with them really through those first few years. And so the scale reverses itself. And again, it is what we're looking for, so I appreciate the question, but what would we want to see? And what we'd want to see here is the opposite effect is the child and teen checkup, and the first steps we're trying to get in early and try to assess and know, and then here's where we're working with families that have higher needs, and you'll see these caseloads are fairly stable over time. The visits that we do in this area with MCH is usually about hour and a half that we spend with families, and we might meet with them just for a few months if there's a very specific need, they just need information, education, or it could go on for up to a year if there's more that we're working with them and trying to deal with an issue that might take longer to resolve. And then the last slide is fairly straightforward, just all of those kind of combined together for MCH and the numbers in that particular program area. So those are the...
That's the actual
4
numbers, right,
areas.
Phil? There's 388 people involved
And
last
that's-
year.
Yeah, and that's in the MCH program. So each of those different categories, the 4 that we talked about today, have their own numbers. But yes, in MCH, you're right, that's the actual
Is that
number.
pretty balanced? I mean, 1 year, 2, I mean, it looks like 16 was like 5 different than 17.
Yeah, that is
I mean-
a very stable area.
Yeah,
And
it's-
isn't it interesting too that
Yeah.
certain things, in a population where it's the statistical significance issue is that you get to a certain size community like ours and things are actually fairly stable. If you get in a really small community, they can be more volatile. But the bigger urban areas, you have different issues, but again, you have a bigger sample size. So generally, there's less volatility and you can see what you can expect year to year when you have higher numbers. And I think our numbers are high enough that they're fairly stable in these areas. Take out some of the variability. So that's what I had for you today.
A lot of good information.
Mine, I just had, I don't know if you covered that exactly, back to the social determinants of
Yes.
health. I assume a number of them would have more than one, could have 2 or 3 maybe?
Yeah, so Commissioner, our average is usually at least 4, and so that's what happens. We would work with a family if they just had one, but that's that piece that they usually have 4, and that's across the board. And then the other thing I shared is those first 5 are pretty stable, and most often the ones we see is
Yeah.
kind of those first 5 along the bottom. But to your question, most of our families have 4 or more. That's really typical.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you.
And I think, Phil, wouldn't you agree the overall goal for having programs like this is so that a person has a good chance, sorry, I'm losing my voice again, a good chance of being able to assimilate into society, become a productive person, independent, and to
Absolutely.
thrive.
Right.
To thrive.
Right.
and they've done studies. I've just came from that, that intersections of health and justice, and they go back to even in the womb.
Yes.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
these things, and I'm just talking to the board here a little bit too about it, but these things are more important than we realize. It's almost like we've forgotten how important prenatal and immediately after birth, and then early, first steps,
Right.
and
Yeah.
child and teen and
Yeah.
all these things, these developmental processes within your own group and culture actually impacts our justice system.
Mhm.
So they don't have to sit in front of Pat McDermott and his department.
Right.
Actually, if they go trace that back, there's intergenerational issues within those social determinants of health.
Right.
And they're finding, I mean, I couldn't believe how many people, there were some county attorneys that were there at this forum, and there were deputy sheriffs and, and health professionals that talked about when they were first in, and they've watched these kids that are being born of offenders from the jail, and then their kids coming into the jail, and it's a round robin, and they're just seeing it, So these social determinants of health and things like that really are huge.
Right.
And the one thing, I just want to make one comment, if it's okay, another one, is that, believe it or not, we take all the health dollars we spend, and including, on health care, which is huge. The estimate is it's not more than 2% is spent on community health and prevention. Less than 2% of those dollars. And so that has to change. If we want to see outcomes that are greater than where we are today, that 2% is going to have to be doubled probably in order to really see the impacts and to change our society.
Right.
Other developed nations are doing it. Other developed countries are spending more than 2%, I guarantee you. So I don't know what it's going to take for us politically to get there,
Right.
but I think that it's about caring for your neighbor, and
Appreciate that.
yeah. Anyway, there's some interesting things that came out of that forum that reminders, I guess. I remember Margaret Phillips. She was a doctor at Mankato State University. I took classes in the 80s from her on child development and well-being, on being a parent, things like that. And she would talk about the demeanor of the mother. If she's facing no money, or facing trying to pay the rent, not feeling well, and the impact in the womb on the child before it's born.
Right.
That they had data that showed that there's an impact on
Stress,
just those issues, stress. And the diet, if you don't have access to good food, and that affects the development of the baby. I just remember her. She's since gone. She died quite some years ago.
I remember.
Do you remember Margaret Phillips? Yeah,
Yep.
she was quite a character. She married a gentleman from India. He's still in the community. He's quite elderly. Dr. Phillips.
He had service down there.
Psychologist. For years he was down there. His clinic, Phillips Clinic.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, psychologist.
Right.
You might have.
I do. I knew who he was.
Yeah, he's still around.
Right.
Yeah, to my knowledge, he's still living.
I didn't know that.
He's very old. I don't know. I asked him his age once, and he just laughed at me because I think he's quite old. But anyway, I don't mean to drag it out. Thank you so much. And
Thank
if
you.
there's anybody else that has any?
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Phil,
Thank you all.
appreciate the
Thanks.
report.
Thank you, Phil.
Thanks a lot, Phil. So we've got some administrative services. Where would you
Yes.
recommend?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 3 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. We filled a number of positions, one being a social worker in our disability services area. We've also filled a deputy patrol officer, and then our environmental health specialist dealing with our wetlands. So those positions have all been filled now. We did have a resignation of a part-time license center specialist, so we've begun recruitment to refill that position. And then we've also initiated recruitment to fill a license center lead worker. We also have had a lateral transfer of a social worker to another unit within the Human Services Department, and as a result of that, initiated recruitment in our disability services area for a social worker. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board has on these items.
Just the recruitment initiated for a licensed center lead worker, is that a full-time?
It is.
It's full-time?
Yes.
And that's because, did we lose a full-time person, or was it a?
We did. We had an individual leave at the end of the year, and so there's been a little bit of restructuring within that unit, and so we're now initiating this recruitment for a lead worker there.
Okay, sounds good. Anybody else? Okay.
Right. Item number 4 in your packet, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is a Corrections Advisory Board appointment. We've had a request to appoint Tamara Hanson to the Corrections Advisory Board. Ms. Hanson is a resident of District 1. Her term would expire at the end of 2019 and would be subject to reappointment at that time.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion for approval to accept Tamara Hanson on our advisory board for corrections, and a second. Is there any discussion or comments? I'll make one quick comment. She's from my district and also from my neighborhood, Lincoln Park neighborhood, and she was part of helping us. We've been working with the city of Mankato on our parks program down there in the Stolzman Road Park, so I got to know her a little bit through that. So, yep. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 in your packet is a ditch balance resolution. This is a resolution that addresses the negative ditch balances where we transfer funds from the general fund to the ditch fund to cover those negative balances. Those advances that go to the ditch funds then are repaid with a 4% interest that the board approved at the last organizational meeting. And so you'll see the list of ditches there that have negative ditch balances, either because of unanticipated repairs, or the big one there is ditch 28, which has that improvement, and there will be some bonding proceeds to pay back that negative amount. So that we would need a motion from the board.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Stromberg and a second from Commissioner People. I always hear things in stereo, so I wasn't sure. To advance this more than $1.2 million from the general fund for the ditch fund. And is there any discussion or comments from our ditch people?
Nope. Pretty straightforward.
Yep. We do it every year, don't we? Isn't it pretty much a
That's
routine event? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 in your packet is the financial status report for the end of 2017. So this is the report for the end of our fiscal year. You'll see that our total revenues came in at $119,404,602 against expenditures of $111,381,386. This was a little different than expected. There were some large items that either didn't happen or did happen that kind of modified our overall results. Some of the things that stand out were, you'll see on the revenue and other sources, a line titled Other Financing Sources. That's quite a bit higher than what was budgeted. That has to do with our refinancing of the Justice Center bonds and how some of those dollars came and went. We didn't have that budgeted per se, because at one time the board was considering just paying off that bond, and then we refinanced it, and so that number stands out as kind of being a little bit off of the budget. We also didn't see as much progress with some of our road projects, so you'll see the contracts and fees line under the expenditure and other uses, where we had just over $23 million in expenditures, but we had budgeted 34, almost 35 million, and so we'll have some of that catch up that will flow into 2018. You'll also see under the building and equipment purchases line that we were quite a bit under budget there. Some of that's related to our government center project, where we had anticipated that project potentially getting off the ground yet last fall. That's now going to happen this spring, and so some of those expenditures that were budgeted in 2017 will actually show up in 2018. So, the results for 2017, while positive in terms of our revenues, exceeded our expenditures. That wasn't what we anticipated when our budget was built. We actually budgeted a deficit, so the results are different than we anticipated to the good, which is the good thing, but we should see some of that come back in 2018, so it may distort this current budget year a little bit as well, as a result of some of the delays or timing issues that occurred there. On the enterprise fund at the bottom of the first page, this is the Ponderosa landfill. You'll see that the expenditures exceeded the revenues by a little over almost $700,000. Again, a lot of that is in the land improvements as we're addressing that cell 13 and 14. So the investment in the future of the landfill is there. The second page shows our investment and cash balances. You'll see that at the top, our total available funds are 32 million compared to a 6-month operating needs of almost 53 million. But our total county funds are sitting at 110,955,969 dollars, so up a little bit from prior years. Again, we're likely to see some of that go away in 2018 as some of those road projects and the building project continues to develop. So be happy to answer any question the board has about the financial status report.
I don't have any questions.
Nope, at this point.
Pretty straightforward. And
The only comment I would have is it looks good most of the time whenever you're within 2 or 3 percentage points of a budget at the end of the year. You know what I mean? Regardless of the variances that exist, it still looks good. It's difficult to budget. Got 450 employees. You got a lot of different programs that we manage, and anytime you're within 2 or 3 percentage points, I think it's a good thing. Although it's not as meaningful as we might think, because we've got programs, we got money still coming in, we got bills we still got to pay from last year, we got things going on, but like you said.
Yes, overall our revenues actually were a little higher than expected in most of the lines, which I think is, from a budgeting strategy, is good to budget conservatively and hope you exceed those budgeted amounts. And on the expenditure side, a lot of the line items are slightly under budget. So again, from a budgeting standpoint, you would prefer to have your budget a little higher on expenditures than what your actual comes out to be, so that you have anticipated what those expenditures might look like. So overall, even though we have some big ticket items that kind of made this report look a little unusual, overall I think it's a positive report nonetheless.
And then related to this, then I'm just wondering, Did we find out, have we gotten any, we've gotten, the bids are all done on this, on the big government project over here, right, Bob? They're all,
No, the bids are due on Friday.
On Friday.
So they will be
That's right.
opened at that point, and it'll be presented to the county board on February 6th.
on February 6th, okay. I've had people asking me, just wondering, you know, where the status was. Anything else, any comments about our situation fiscally?
Sounds like we had a lot of interest in the bids for the
That is true. We held a pre-bid meeting a week or so ago up in the third floor conference room, and it was standing room only.
Really?
So,
That's something.
as the construction manager has indicated previously, a January bid time is a good time to bid. Different contractors are trying to figure out what their activities will look like for the year, and so starting out the year in January with a bid on the street certainly seems at this point to be a positive development.
So they were coming from far and wide, the bidders?
You know, I didn't see the sign-in list, but you know, there were a number of large contractors and small, and in talking with the construction manager, he was very pleased with the contractors that showed up, and are hopeful that that will lead to very competitive bids.
That's very good. For the good of the order, anything else today? I guess we're not having a recess for lunch, so it'll actually be an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn. Second.
We got a motion to adjourn in a second. Thank you all for coming, and the meeting is adjourned.